Hi, guys. I am so excited to be connecting with you while you're down in Mexico and I am here in the States. So I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here to talk about your gallery.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, we're actually sitting in the residence and gallery right now.
I love it. So, you guys, I was able to connect with Bryce and Ashley a few months ago about your space and about this incredible residency that you run for artists in Mexico City. And so, I cannot wait to hear more about what you're doing and about your program. It is just really sounds like it is taking off. So, to get this started, I would just love for each of you to share a little bit about your background and how you really came into the arts.
Well, um, I guess my personal background story. So I went to Brown, and Brown, their curriculum is quite open. They have like this, what they call like the open curriculum. So I was allowed and free to take any courses that I want. And I feel like as I started to take courses in the history of art and architecture classes, that's when I really started to build my interests. And then there was actually one key figure during my college years, and he, like, I spent a lot of time with him. He didn't also go to Brown, but he, like, his family was in the arts, and like I don't know, just being involved in those conversations and then like being introduced um in that way, in a more like informal way, really, I feel like kicked it off. And then after school, I went straight to a job in the contemporary art department at Sotheby's, stayed there moving around departments, and then
Which is where we actually met.
where I met Bryce. Yes. And then, yeah, then we started Naranjo.
The rest
That's
is
awesome. I didn't realize that's how you guys met. Very cool. So Bryce, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to that point of meeting Ashley.
Yeah, I definitely think mine was mostly informal too. But my mother actually is a very good artist, and she did a school project for my English class, and the AP art history teacher saw it and was like, wow, you're a great artist. You should really take AP art history. So I did it and I loved it. And I actually got an internship at the Met somewhere in between high school and college, where everyone was super, I'd never been around people who were passionate about art before. And it was such a great experience. I would highly recommend it for any high school listeners. I think it's the lot your senior year, or somewhere in between sophomore and senior year, or junior and senior year, and then senior to college. It's a great program. And then I stayed on during college to work at the college group at the Met, doing their programming for the tri-state area. And I never really thought about art history as a college major until that program. And then when I got to college, all of my friends as well were kind of thinking about it, or maybe that's who I just subconsciously gravitated towards. But yeah, kind of like Ashley, meeting somebody, or in my case, multiple people who are really passionate about art, just got my mind thinking. And then I was able to intern during college as well at Christie's. And then when school ended, Sotheby's was just kind of the natural progression. And so we met there in the contemporary art department. And then I moved on to Scarstedt Gallery.
So you guys met in the contemporary art department at Sotheby's. And how did this conversation start of we need to begin a space?
I actually can't remember what came first, whether it was our trip down here or us. I know we were having ideas before we came down here. But I think it started by us taking a trip together.
Yeah, and just, I mean, like, I guess, so even though Bryce moved on to Scarstead and I was still at Sotheby's, obviously we were still spending lots of time together as friends. And also as like kind of young patrons of the like emerging art world, we were doing studio visits with younger artists and supporting emerging galleries. So I guess like our our personal passions outside of what we were doing at Sotheby's and Scarset, which was very much like on a different field in the art world. It was very blue chip. It was the secondary market. On the personal level, we were very much interested in supporting emerging artists. So I think like that was always in the back of our mind. And then, yeah, probably the trip that we took down here, and I don't know, even though the date.
Late February of 2022.
Really started this idea of like, how can we translate our personal passions in supporting these younger artists in a more professional capacity? Like, what can we do more than just, you know, like spreading the word, collecting a bit, going to the gallery openings, and etc. And then, yeah, this came about.
I love that you guys, you know, you were working in these like blue chip spaces, you were doing, you had a certain life, and then you wanted to support emerging artists. I think it's so important that we have spaces for emerging artists to be able to exhibit, to sell their work. And so you guys, naturally, it seems like, came to that, and then had this amazing, I'm going to assume amazing trip down to Mexico. And when you guys went down there originally, were you thinking, ooh, maybe we'll open a space here? Or is it more after the fact you were like, Mexico would be the perfect spot for a gallery space?
It was definitely after the fact. I mean, well, because we were also thinking like, okay, for sure, gallery, like that's, you know, first check off the list on how we can support these younger artists, but also like, what is there more to do? And I think we were actually thinking about, well, of course, Mexico inspired us with the spaces and the people and the community here that we met and saw on our first trip. But also we were thinking about like, who are the artists that we would like to like support. And there was this one artist, she's based in New York, whom we've followed and also are big followers of her gallery as well. And she's very much like a site specific artist. She goes out into like the New York streets or the subway or bars and like brings her easel even sometimes to draw or paint on these small canvases. And it's very site specific. And so we were thinking like, wow, it'd be really interesting to see how her work develops when she's like placed in a new context. And then so that's how we came up with the idea of the residency, was like, okay, so this would be great for her. But like, would this be, you know, a great opportunity or experience for other artists? And we found, or thus far, that I think it has been.
I love that, you know, you guys were playing around with these different ideas, and it was so creative in terms of finding a space. And then it sounds like it was originally born out of this experience of this one artist, and now it has grown and flourished. So you guys have a gallery space down there and this incredible residency where you invite artists to create and work there and exhibit. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the space now, like where it is in Mexico, what the exhibition space looks like, and also about the residency.
Yeah, so we're located in Santa Maria la Ribera, which is definitely like a more traditional area. And we wanted the residency to be in the same location as the gallery. So the gallery spaces, you know, lead into like the residency and the studio, so that visitors to the gallery can also come and see the progress of and like meet our artist in resident if the artist in resident is like open to that. But Santa Maria was the perfect area for this because it's an area, correct me, in the 1920s that got abandoned.
Yeah.
And now there's like huge initiatives to restore these like old houses. And so yeah, the gallery is kind of in a very big house, which, you know, was when we originally came down to Mexico, is what we were inspired by, this like indoor outdoor space, you know, how art is viewed down here, kind of in a less traditional capacity.
So for everybody listening, I got to have a little tour of their space via Zoom, and it is gorgeous what you guys have done with the space, how everything connects. You mentioned indoor, outdoor. There was like this beautiful tree outside and glass. Um, Tell us a little bit about how the residents come to you and where if they're like, if it's a live work or what that situation looks like.
Yeah, well, what Bryce was saying was, so we have the gallery spaces, the residence, like accommodations apartment, plus their studio all in one space. So yeah, when they come down, they stay here at Naranjo. They work here as well, and then a studio upstairs, which is like filled, like light filled, floor to ceiling window. You're kind of like up there in the environments, whether it's like rain or shine, you're up there. And then, yeah, and then eventually their work that they make here is shown here at the gallery.
It sounds amazing. So when residents come down to your space, typically how long are they in residence?
Well, I mean, right now we have them scheduled for 7-week residency, which we have found like works for some artists. I mean, this is also the first year, so we also want to kind of like figure out whether like artists working in different mediums or just simply their quicker pace or slower pace or what is really needed, depending on each artist and the timeline. But for the first year, we're doing 7 weeks. And then following with the show, whether that's a solo show, group show, duo show, yeah, for a 5-week period.
So that leads me to one of the questions I had about your gallery, which is, you're working with a lot of different artists. Some are in residence. How do you guys go about curating an exhibition? Is it based on their experience down there, or are you looking at work ahead of time? I just love to get a little insight into how you guys are curating your gorgeous exhibitions that you have.
Yeah, well, right now, all of the artists that are included in our exhibitions are also part of the residency program. Whether we do a solo or do a group depends on, and it is dependent on, and we tell the artist prior, like before coming down, in what type of capacity the exhibition will be, following their residency. But I mean, a big initiative that we are trying to do is kind of like bridging this gap, or like bridging local and international voices. A lot of like the residency program right now are international artists. We do have like some local artists like within the program throughout the year. Of course, it's a little tricky because they have their studios and their homes already here, so it doesn't really like make a difference for them to come and stay here. But in terms of shows, like where we can really find a nice harmonious like conversation between those two voices and artists and talents, I think is something that we're really trying to strive for. But yeah, in terms of like also curating the residency at this time, since it's the first year, it was more of like artists that Bryce and I have already supported or have known about and wanted to give them this opportunity. In the future, yeah, we're thinking of perhaps an open call or something that we can, I don't know, facilitate. But
Yeah, ways to bring in. I know it's interesting. Like once you've been in the arts and you start to see different types of work, sometimes there hits not a wall exactly, but you're like, okay, how can I see more new work than what I'm already been exposed to, And open calls can be a good way to kind of get through that if necessary. I love what you were saying too about these conversations between international artists and artists who are in the area and creating these exhibitions that overlap. I think that sounds really beautiful. And also ways for artists to be able to build their network and meet different artists in different areas sounds really, really exciting. What are you guys currently showing? I'd love to hear about your current exhibition.
Yeah, we're showing ceramics by the artist Taylor Lee. She was our resident from July through September. She's normally based in Los Angeles, and her work is, influenced by standards of femininity and, looking back and creating like a modern, I wouldn't say rewrite of
Like
history.
representation.
Yeah, modern representation. And it was really exciting seeing her work. And, after her time in Mexico, she had never done feet before, put feet on her woman. And down here, when she was at the anthropology museum and spending a lot of time researching, she found a lot of the sculptures did have these like big bulbous, but then flat at the bottom feet. And yeah, and she said that she is going to keep doing that moving forward. So, I mean, that's just what we are trying to do, provide the space and time for artists to have new ideas, create new bodies of work. And then it's so exciting seeing them take it with them afterwards.
Yeah. And then also backtracking a little to our previous our second exhibition, this is the third, Taylor's. It was a very successful duo show between Lily Alice Baker, who came from London, and Bio Alvaro, who works here in Mexico City, is from here in Mexico City. And like, although they had two very different backgrounds and like grew up differently, and like how they came to kind of like supporting their ideas and concepts were very different. Like the show, in terms of what they were saying about like body language and gender politics and dynamics, you could see like there was a clear, like dialogue between their works. And I think also for them, like you were saying, they're now going to be like they worked in tandem here in Mexico and spent a lot of time together. And I think they forged a friendship that they'll have, for the rest of their careers as being artists, although in London and then in Mexico.
But it was, our curatorial decision to pair them together. We saw like constant theme, but we didn't, ask them to become best friends or ask them to collaborate in any way. And seeing what came out. And I guess it goes back to curating an exhibition, because our program is special and that it's formed and everything is made in the residency. We kind of pick the residents and then we see what comes out. Obviously we do have input into like what we do display. I mean, typically we have displayed everything they've made and it's their choice whether or not they want to show it. But yeah, it's a learning process for us too, of what, is the result of the residencies, and each residency is super different as well.
I love this idea. I think it's really exciting, to be honest, because new work is being generated, these connections and friendships are being forged. And also, you were mentioning the artists being able to go to the anthropology museum. I had the opportunity to go there when I was getting my MFA, and it was life-changing. I mean, that museum is incredible. It's like one of the top museums I think I've ever been to. So having that at their fingertips, and also, like I said, this gorgeous space, this light, this history, there's just so much I feel like that's coming out of it. And I was looking at the sculptural pieces that you were talking about with the feet, and I thought it was so interesting that they had never included that, because it's such a big part of the work, really gorgeous work too. I absolutely love this. So, a lot of listeners are artists themselves, and they are always wondering different ways that they can connect with gallerists, or how they can begin to kind of approach a space. And so I was wondering, since you work with emerging artists, if you have any advice to artists out there who may be beginning this trek themselves.
Well, I mean, in terms of approaching gallerists, like, I mean, of course, everyone says like, if you have a connection, it's great, but also like just cold call, reaching out. I mean, that's also a lot of like what we did on the vice versa. And like, I don't know if that gallery feels like it's a good fit for you, like likely it probably is on the other side, and a nice conversation will result from that. I also think like, I mean, this is going away from the commercial sphere, but also getting involved in, or if you're interested in doing so, like residencies, and looking at maybe like grants and fellowships also, which both will give you resources and time to like explore new, or I don't know, just explore, period. I think is really like will really move your work forward, especially at such an emerging stage. You'll just meet like new people, you'll have, yeah, you'll be able to foster like different relationships, you'll have new awarenesses as you travel and go to these new residencies. And I think, yeah, I think it's really important for emerging artists to have those experiences.
And I think just remaining like open and flexible, like letting people come into your studio for a studio visit, inviting people over, and just also like forming, not, I mean, I guess we're not scary. Maybe some gallerists are, but I think everyone is like not as scary as I think it would seem, and just taking that leap. Like Lily thought the artist who we were talking about for a second exhibition from London, she thought we cold called her. We slid into her DMs and she told me afterwards, she thought that we were like scammers. She was like, it's too good to be true. But we like persisted and then emailed her after. And yeah, the rest, I think just keeping, I wouldn't
love
say at it, but within a reasonable level, I guess.
And I
Yeah.
mean, the industry is so social. So like getting yourself out there and going to gallery openings and like just, yeah, trying to, I mean, not in like a very, what's the word called? Like commercial way, but like just like getting yourself out there and like meeting new people, and eventually, I don't know, something along the lines will happen through those connections as well.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about, having a social group, getting to know other artists, curators, gallerists. We're all in this sphere together. And you're right, it's a very social space in terms of like, there's an opening, you go, there's a dinner afterwards. And that there can be these really genuine conversations that happen about life, about art, about just being, And I like what you mentioned about residencies as well, because that's such a great way to meet people because you're really immersed there with them. And so I feel like you've struck this really great balance between the two of having them coexist, because I don't really know of a ton of spaces that do what you're doing. And so I find that really exciting, like what you're able to create there. I also am wondering how is it being in Mexico? Has it been, you know, just how has it been for you guys? Because you're from the US and now you're living down there and running this business down there.
Well, I think it's been great. I mean, certainly we have a slight barrier, which is the language barrier, which we are trying to learn
Really
on a
solve.
daily basis. But like just things like that, it's been fun to just like put yourself into a new area and just learn how different things work here, learn how lunches are 5 hours long here, and like learn a new language, like a completely different pace of life. I think has been really good and will be a nice, like, I don't know, it will be good and influential as like we move forward in our careers as well.
And it's
Mhm.
interesting because we're learning at the same time as our artists. And so it feels like even more so of like what we are trying to build, this community of us as the gallerists, the clients, the collectors, the like viewers, the artists, it kind of what we wanted to build was something cohesive. And I think it is interesting that we are with each artist that comes learning at the same time as I'm down here. And each artist also wants to like see different things, is inspired by different things. And so with each artist, we're also like learning new things about what they're perceiving about Mexico City.
That's so wonderful that there's this give and take, you know what I mean? And that you bring people to Mexico City, they're able to experience it, and they're able to even guide you guys to a potentially new space based off of their interest in what's happening. So again, it's this wonderful cohesion of the residency, a gallery, building a network, building these art relationships all coming together. And what a phenomenal space to do it. I mean, Mexico City is one of my favorite places. So that is really, really special that you get to have that there. Can you share with us what exhibition you guys are kind of working on, or artists that you're going to be coming into your residency soon?
Yeah, well, our current artists, which we now have 3 at the moment, are all working for exhibitions that will be in a couple months from now. So we have Christopher Paul Jordan. He just finished at Yale, and he came down here when, like, end of September, October.
Yeah.
He will be showing a solo in December, opening on December 9. And then we have 2 other artists who work with Fredericks and Fraser Gallery in New York, Anna Keneally and Lizzie Lunday. They're also down here and will be opening their show in February. And then moving forward, we have Jared Owens, who's at Silver Art Projects right now, Justin Chance, Pauline Shaw. So lots of exciting exhibitions to come that we're excited for equally.
That sounds incredible. Like, what an amazing lineup to be having, and to not only have the exhibition, but have them working in your space. This has just been so enlightening talking to you guys about what you're creating down there, and this the space, the residency gallery, not hybrid exactly, but coming together of that. So can you tell us where we can find you online?
Well, we have a website, naranjo141.com. We're also on Instagram. And yeah, we try with our Instagram to show like a little bit of both our daily lives, the artist residency, and then the gallery. You know, we kind of want people to see the behind the scenes of how the exhibitions are made and what our process is like. So yeah, give us a follow.
Excellent. Well, I'll definitely be sharing that in our show notes, guys. And you can also find that over on Instagram, and definitely check out what Bryce and Ashley are creating in Mexico City. And thank you guys so much for being on the show. It's really been a pleasure learning more about your space.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye.